Here's a couple creatures which destroy non-creature permanents. Acidic Slime is pretty good for 5 mana. You can blow up artifact, enchantment, or land, and you also get a 2/2 Death Touch, which is kind of annoying because it's going to trade with a creature much bigger than itself, and it's especially good if you can recur this one. Woodfall Primus, 8 mana, but it's really useful because it has Persist as well, which means it'll survive Wraths, it'll come back, and it'll blow up one of your opponent's lands. It's really annoying, especially if you have a sack outlet and a way to recur it. Next up was Duplicant. I think most EDH decks want to run this one because it's colorless spot removal, and it exiles the creature, which is good because a lot of decks have recursion, just like this one. And at the same time, you're getting a threat on the board. So all that for 6 mana is pretty good, and it's a 2/4, so I can recur that with Reveillark. Archon of Justice. This one's kind of interesting because it doesn't necessarily do anything unless you have a sack outlet or a way to destroy it. But it sits on the board, a 4/4 flyer for 5, so it's a pretty good threat, and your opponent's not going to want to attack into it. So this thing's pretty good, especially if you can kill it yourself and recur it. Angel of Despair. 7 mana for Vindicate is a lot, but you also get a 5/5 flyer, so it's a big threat as well. And I've saved the best for last. I think Terastodon is one of the most important creatures in this deck. For 8 mana, you get a 9/9, and you can destroy 3 non-creature permanents. One of the quickest ways to win with this deck is just to excel into this guy, get him out on turn 5 or 6, and your opponent's not going to come back from losing 3 lands that early. It's also useful pretty much at any point in the game just to set my opponent back, especially if I can recur him. He's great, especially if I have some of my own permanents which are killing me. I can blow them up and get an elephant. And it's important to not get too trigger happy with this guy, because it's happened before where I've blown up all my opponent's lands, recur this guy, and then realize I don't have an answer for the 15 elephants. So it's great if you have Pernicious Deed or Maelstrom Pulse to kill all the elephants. Otherwise you might find yourself in a world of hurt. So those are all the creatures in the deck. Like I said, they're all utility creatures. None of these are in here just for beats. I've seen a lot of Teneb decks that like to run Spiritmonger, Lord of Extinction, and Phantom Neshoba, stuff like that. And those are fine if you want to build a more aggressive deck, but I'm going for a more synergy, combo, control kind of build, so all my creatures need to do something. But these guys up here, for example, they're good for getting the damage in if that's how I want to win. So I'm definitely capable of winning through damage pretty quickly. Moving on to the non-creatures. These are some of my single target removal spells. I think black, white, green is really well known for its ability to play a lot of great spot removal. These first two here are pretty awesome. Maelstrom Pulse and Vindicate take out any permanent. Putrefy, I really like this one. Gets a creature or an artifact. I chose this one over Mortify just because artifacts are generally a bigger threat. First turn Soul Ring can really set your back, so it's nice to be able to blow that up. These two here, Path to Exile and Swords to Plowshares, they're less versatile. They can only hit creatures, but they only cost 1, they're both instants, and they both exile the creature, so they're worth playing. And then these two up top, these ones have a different sort of versatility. Brain Spoil is kind of unique. 5 mana to destroy a creature isn't really worth it, but the ability to transmute makes it really good, especially at the 5 casting cost slot. There's a lot of interesting things it can get. I'll show you those later. And Profane Command. This one's always sort of on the edge. I think about cutting it, but then every now and then I have a game where it's the best card in the deck, and well, it has a whole bunch of uses. So it's spot removal, it's a recursion card, and sometimes it's the best way to win the game if I have a ton of mana. Similarly, playing these colors gives you access to some of the great sweepers in the format. I think the first two auto-includes here, Austere Command and Pernicious Deed. If you're looking at white sweepers, you're always going to start with Austere Command. This one's really good because it's versatile, can hit any kind of permanent, but it also has potential to be one-sided, so you can blow up your opponent's stuff and make sure you keep your most important card on the table. Pernicious Deed kind of works the same way. Set it to blow up your opponent's stuff, and hopefully you'll be able to keep your permanents on the table. After that, there's a ton of different choices for sweepers, so you can sort of pick whichever one fits your deck. For the purposes of this deck, I like Akroma's Vengeance, just because it's pretty reliable. It'll work every time, just blow everything up, straightforward. Decree of Pain, I really like this one. It's 8 mana, which is kind of steep. However, there's not many cards that generate this kind of card advantage. Blow up all your opponent's creatures, draw a handful of cards. This is the kind of card that can turn a losing position into a winning position, just like that. And it's also useful for this cycling ability. Every now and then that becomes useful for an early game removal to get rid of a key utility creature. And it also really wrecks Zami decks because they can't counter it, and all wizards are pretty small. This last one here, usually I wouldn't play Damnation or Wrath of God in any deck which has access to white because there's always something better. However, because I'm running Dimir Houseguard, I wanted to have a sweeper at the 4 casting cost slot so I could transmute into some sort of mass spot removal. So Damnation makes it. Next we have some cards with graveyard tricks. These two here, where you go with an All Sun's Dawn, straight up return a card from your graveyard to your hand. These obviously become much stronger later in the game when you've got a fully stocked graveyard, and these basically become as good as tutors. All Sun's Dawn later in the game is going to be one of the best cards in your deck because it's a 3-for-1, whatever cards you need for the situation. Life from the Loam pretty much belongs in its own category. It's got some unique abilities here. Works really well with cycle lands and with fetch lands, and in theory it works well with strip mine, but I'm not running that combo because it's a pretty cheap way to end the game on turn 2. It's also good for its dredge, which basically means you're going to stock up your graveyard for the end game, which is really useful when you've got your recursion engine going. It's also really good if you're keeping a 2-land hand. It's going to guarantee you hit your land drops. Anyone who's played this format for a while knows why Yawgmoth's Will is one of the strongest cards. Obviously it becomes stronger later in the game when you have a ton of cards to choose from, but basically the idea is you're going to play this and generate so much card advantage that you're just going to win the game. And this last one here, Sword of Light and Shadow, it's the only equipment in the deck because, like I said, it's not a very aggressive build, but the idea is that it's a recursion engine. And it's also the only way in the deck that I can gain life, which is important because a lot of my cards do damage to myself. And protection from white and black, those are pretty relevant because that's going to protect you from most of the spot removal in the format. So I really like this card. You don't need to play blue to have access to good card draw. In fact, a lot of the best card draw spells in the format are black. These two right here, Sensei's Divining Top and Sylvan Library, will let you fix your draws, which is really important in this format. They're especially good with fetches and other ways to shuffle your deck, because if you don't like the cards you see on top, you can rearrange them, shuffle it up. They both also give you access to extra draws in a pinch, so that's really useful. Next up, these two right here, Harmonize and Ancient Craving, just a straight up 3 cards of 4 mana, which is always a good deal. You can also run, I think it's called Ambition's Cost, which is basically the same thing as Ancient Craving, if you have room for one of those. Then we get into some of the more powerful cards. Promise of Power, this is one of the strongest sorcery speed card draw spells. I don't think there's any blue cards that'll give you 5 cards of 5 mana. Obviously the 5 life, that's kind of a negligible drawback in this format. And all that on top of a potential massive demon makes Promise of Power a really strong card. This is one of the best tutor targets late in the game. Phyrexian Arena, extra card a turn, lose a life. This is the kind of card that your opponent will want to deal with, otherwise you're drawing too many cards for them to catch up. And then Necropotence, the card that black really shouldn't have. This thing's just way too good. Draw as many cards as you want, basically, and there's not much else to say. If you're playing black, you want to run Necropotence.